right. Today we'll be diving into the role of the New Mexico Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department Forestry Division before, during, and after fire, including the Prescribed Fire Act and Certified Burner Training, Community Wildfire Defense Grant, Summer Proposal Preparation, and how the Forestry Division is innovating, leading, and staying involved with fire preparedness and recovery efforts. Forestry Division has a lot of really exciting work that is both ongoing and coming down the pipeline. And we're excited to have Jacob Pederson with us today to share some news and helpful information. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Jacob.
Thanks, Rachel. Hey, everybody. It's very nice to be with you all today. My name is Jacob Pederson. I'm the Acting Resource Management Bureau Chief for the MNRD Forestry Division. So we're a part of a different department in the state. We'll have a little slide on that later. But first, thanks for filling out that poll. That was very helpful for me to see kind of who's in the audience today. And I think we've definitely got slides. We're going to introduce a few other people who are also from the state who are with me. I think this is going to be just a really good opportunity to give you a broad overview of our division and hopefully get a little bit deeper into prescribed fire and the way what our role is specifically in that. And we've also got Abigail here with me later, and I might call on her to give a little talk on community wildfire defense grants when that slide comes up. Great. And then with that, I'm going to just jump into my slides. Can everybody see just the slide? Are we on full screen?
Looks great, Jacob.
Great. All right, we'll skip the first one here. Right, so my name is Jacob Pederson. Again, I'm the Acting Resource Management Bureau Chief. A little bit more about MNRD, Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department. So our department is home to state parks, Oil Conservation Division, Energy Conservation and Management Division, Mining and Minerals Division, ourselves, Forestry Division, and also the Youth Conservation Corps. I don't know why there's a cape parting there, but take a minute to introduce some others who are on the call today. Brian Phillip is our Prescribed Fire Coordinator. Gabriel Cordova is our Volunteer Fire Assistance Coordinator. And you'll meet Brian later, but if Gabe's on the call, feel free to unmute and introduce yourself, assuming people can still see the video on the side. But Gabe, are you around?
Yes, how's it going? Gabriel Cordova, I'm the VFA coordinator with the State of New Mexico Forestry Division. I pretty much work with all the fire departments across the state, working on getting them grants and so forth, and work with training and all that good stuff. And if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to ask.
Thanks, Gabe. And Brian, you'll introduce yourself now, but Brian will have a few slides later in the presentation.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be on this webinar with you all. My name is Brian Phillip, and I am the Prescribed Fire Coordinator for New Mexico Forestry Division.
And Abigail, give a quick intro, and we'll get to the Community Wildfire Defense Grants part later.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abigail Plecky. I'm the Community Wildfire Defense Grant Coordinator. And as Jacob said, yeah, we'll get into that later, but I'm happy to be here with you all.
And finally, I understand that we have several of our wildland fire coordinators, which are positions we support, but they're at cities and counties across the state. I'm not as familiar with those people as individuals, but what I'd like is if you're online today and you'd like to unmute and take yourself off video and introduce yourself, tell us your name and where you work. And maybe we can go on a hand raising system and have Rachel or Gabe call on you. We may be putting people on the spot. Garrett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem here. Garrett Hansen, wildland coordinator for Taos County. I've also functioned in this capacity for the village of Angel Fire some years back. With the bulk of my fire experience, hotshotting with the Forest Service and working on their Type 6 engines.
Great, thanks, Garrett.
Yeah.
Any other hands up out there? I'm not sure
No.
exactly who's on the call. Okay, well, we'll keep going. The Forestry Division, so our responsibility is in the Forestry Division, and the first bullet on this list is wildfire suppression. This is really the history of our agency, is responsibility for all non-federal, non-municipal, and non-tribal land in the state. It's about 43 million acres, significantly more acreage by acreage responsibility than the Forest Service has, for example. That covers approximately 65% of the state. We also provide technical support for forest landowners. We've got several programs that provide that. We have, so for private tree harvesting, we have a law that is the Practices Act. And we issue permits for private tree harvesting. And then we also have a botany program in our state. And there's a new state botanist. She's in the field today. Her name's Erica Rowe. But there's also a new endangered plant rule that was passed that's being implemented, where we just give better support to projects to avoid impacts to important endangered plants. We're also guided by the 2020 New Mexico Forest Action Plan. It was completed in 2020, but it was the result of several, couple years of significant work and a huge amount of community involvement. I'm sure several people in the audience today participated in a meeting or two or more. And it's got strategies and goals, and it gets really down into the detail. And over time, it's really proved to be a quality document that continues to guide our work and set us up to justify a lot of the money we end up asking for in grants from mostly Forest Service grants to get more resources and opportunities for good projects to occur in our state. And the Forestry Division organization. So this is a nice photo of all of us at our last in-person meeting. The state forester is Laura McCarthy. We have our headquarters, kind of our state office in Santa Fe. We have an administrative bureau that supports the entire agency. But the two main Santa Fe bureaus are the Resource Protection Bureau that manages suppression and preparedness, and then the Resource Management Bureau, which is my bureau, and we handle a lot of the federal grants, the state money, working with our 6 districts across the state to put that money to work on forest health treatments, fuels treatments, thinning projects. There's also the Wildfire Response Program, which is our one small crew of people who go out and suppress fire. And the Smoky Bear Historic Park is a fun feature of our department. It's down there in Capitan, New Mexico. And then, and of course, our 6 districts. So Bernalillo, Capitan, Chama, Cimarron, Las Vegas, and Socorro. And we are going to be expanding quite a bit in the next year or two. The recent legislature gave us approval for 2 hotshot crews, and it's going to significantly increase the size of our department. And I wish I could get rid of this terrible transition. Used a template today. So some of our programs, there's the Cooperative Forestry Assistance Programs. So these are this is regular funding the state receives from the Forest Service. All states receive this type of funding from the Forest Service every year. We have forest health and forest stewardship programs. That's helping landowners who have forest land get forest stewardship plans written on their properties. And then that has a variety of benefits. It's nice to have a land and some technical advice to help you, and a document to help you think about your property. but also gets you access to cost share through the Forest Health Initiative program. And Forest Stewards Guild, of course, is our partner in delivering that program to landowners. We have an invasive plants program. This is funding we get to help address invasive plants issues across the state. Most of that money goes into subgrants to a lot of SWCDs, cities. Similarly, the Urban and Community Forestry Program, obviously for more urban areas in the state, tree planting and planning and tree mapping and lots of good things. Then we have the Forest Legacy Program, which is federally funded support for conservation easements on forested lands. There are several acts here too that we also administer and implement. The Land Conservation Incentives Act is a tax incentive program for forest conservation. So whether it was through the Forest Legacy Program or not, private landowners who do conservation easements on their properties have the ability to apply for a tax credit to reduce their tax burden on their conserved lands. The Natural Heritage Conservation Act, it's actually one of the things that was funded in SB 9, the Land of Enchantment Legacy Fund, that was passed in this, also passed in this recent legislature. That's going to be our first consistent state funding for conservation easements for the state dollars, which is really important because it helps us, it gives us a state source of match for the legacy program that only covers 75% of the value of the easement. And also just non-legacy projects, we can now do our own projects. There have been a few in the past, but we've never had consistent funding for that. And that'll begin in FY 25. So that's July 2025 is when that funding will first come to us. And then the Forest and Watershed Restoration Act. This is another regular source of state funding. There's a Forest and Watershed Restoration Advisory Board that reviews project proposals every year. And, you know, we end up funding a lot of this work. And a lot of the long-term, big landscape scale, ambitious projects, a few of which are supported by those wildland fire coordinators that we're now supporting across the state. You know, that's really great because it gives us these long-term projects that are well thought out, well designed, that we can keep funding and kind of get to that landscape scale impact that we're looking for. And finally, the Prescribed Burning Act. You're going to hear a lot about that today. Continuing our programs, we do a lot of firefighter training. And so this is Resource Protection Bureau and working with our districts to train firefighters so we're prepared when fires do happen. We also do a lot of thinning and fuels projects, and we really depend on our partnerships with the State Land Office, tribes, soil and water conservation districts, and counties. They interact in a variety of ways. And increasingly, we're excited that there's a new narrow procurement exemption that will take effect June 20th next month that'll allow NGOs greater access to a lot of federal grant opportunities that previously, for state procurement reasons, just weren't well, it was very difficult for our division and burdensome to implement NGO proposals for funding. And so a lot of those programs, happy to say, have been fixed. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that in a minute when we talk more about, when Abigail talks a little bit more about the Community Wildfire Defense Grants program. And then there's the Cooperative Forestry Assistance Programs. We kind of already covered those. And there's some repeat here, so we'll keep going. This is just a quick slide to show why we thin forests. And especially everybody knows the Hermes Peak Cap Canyon. There's just so much anecdotal evidence that when you walk into a stand that's been treated and you can see how the fire behavior changed. And so when we talk about our role before fire, it's that firefighter training. It's supporting that local capacity at counties and cities with our volunteer fire coordinators. It's GAID, supporting them across the state. And it's what Brian Phillip does. We'll talk later. But this is more the Resource Management Bureau's area where we have a lot of state funding we get the last few years because, it's been good oil and gas money. And we are deploying that across the landscape, working with a variety of partners to try to get at that landscape scale treatment. And the science is getting better and better on how to target those treatments. It's not just thinning for thinning's sake, it's also giving our own foresters the training and continuing education to really design quality treatments that respect the landscape and not just the risk of fire, and help us see and get help that fire kind of lay down and have some positive effects on the landscape. And even with the tragedy, a lot of the fires we've seen in the last year, there are plenty of examples where it had positive benefits, and it's getting the majority. What we're trying to do is push the majority of fire that occurs, obviously, to have more positive and fewer catastrophic benefits on the landscape. A few more programs, and this is really meant to be a very broad overview. This is another repeat. Oh, let's get to Brian Phillip. We're going to have Brian Phillip join us now. He's going to present the next few slides. And Brian, feel free to come on and just let me know when to switch to the next slide.
Sure thing, Jacob. Trying to move my. Sorry if I'm not looking at you all. Again, my name is Brian Phillip, the Prescribed Fire Coordinator for New Mexico Forestry Division. And we have the Prescribed Burning Act, which was known as House Bill 57. That was signed in February of 28 of 22. From there, our working group started putting together the criteria such as a proficiency workbook, 9-element training, as well as starting to propose a draft rule. This kind of hit a speed bump just because there was smoke in the air. We had two of the largest fires in state history going up at the same time, as well as initial attack incidents throughout the state. I've been in this position for about 8 weeks now, and I just wanted to give you all a little bit of background on exactly what the Prescribed Burning Act is. And as you can see, it recognizes that prescribed burning. Let's see. Is in the public interest. Every landowner has the right to burn. However, there is a compliance and restrictions. And when I say that is, if you're a landowner now without this certification, and I'll get into the process later on, you'll be liable for double damages. So if you burn your neighbor's house that is roughly $100,000, you'd be liable for $200,000. However, if once you're certified, you will be liable for actual damages. So if you burn the $100,000 house, the neighbor's house, then you're only liable for that. So it establishes a negligence clause. And most importantly, creates the Certified Prescribed Burn Manager program that includes training. And I want to emphasize on training. We want to train our private landowners to apply pile burning as well as broadcast burning on their own lands using the proper tools and educational process. And then I kind of hit on the 9-element training, and some of those include the legal requirements, safety, weather, fire behavior, smoke management, prescribed burn techniques, public relations planning, and contingencies as well. If you go to the next one, Jake. It also establishes a burn model permit for counties and municipalities for those municipalities and counties who choose to implement a permitting process. Again, it creates the Prescribed Burn Manager Certification Program, and we've been working extensively with the New Mexico State University Extension Services as well. And as I said on the last slide, a simple negligence standard for private landowners undertaking burns who are or who use certified prescribed burn managers. And I kind of hit already on the double damages. If you are not, don't go through this 9-element training and complete your proficiency workbook, and go through the committee that will be established to determine its certification, you will be held for double damages. So that's the incentive. The training, paramount. We want to be safety, which is paramount, even more important. And then as well, the incentive for actual damages only. Right now, our status, as we're still in the infancy stages, we've made some traction and there's been some movement on this. Our training programs are almost completed, but we're still in the under development status. Right now, our proposed rule, we're hoping the proposed rule, I think this is outdated and I apologize about that. We're hoping for Q2 of this year. So that's just going through that legal process and making sure that we're all set to publish and finalize this rule, which is Q2 as well. And I may have misspoke. The rule, yes, that was established at that correct date on November 9th of 21. But just with the historic fire activity that we experienced, all of our resources were exhausted, and this was kind of like in a pause. It wasn't put on the shelf, but not as much movement was able to be made at the time. But the rule finalization, Q2 of this year. There's going to be two types of certification. First one being a pile burn certification, which is typically lower complexity burn techniques designed to burn fuels collected from the property. For example, the materials from thinning projects, or maybe some dead and down debris, or if you were to limbing for your residence, around your residence, you could pile that into a pile and then consume it. And it's a good entry into prescribed fire just because the complexity is lower based as well. And this is the most basic level of certification under the proposed rules as well. Here's just a few examples of pile construction as well as consumption. This looks like it's in the Bosque there in Santa Clara. Here's more in the timber. As you can see, some of these pile placements are not underneath the drip line. They are placed where it would not be able to get into ladder fuels. Also, I want to hit on there, you notice there was snow on the ground. So that will minimize your creep and lessen your chances for escape as well. Our highest level in our certified burn program will be our broadcast burn certification due to the higher complexity, the larger scale land management. It's an important forward tool for mitigating large scale wildfire risk. These typically take a lot more planning to ensure that you can keep the fire within the fire boundary. So there might be there will be a lot of prep work, just not on the anticipated burn site, but also the adjoining land surrounding your target. More rigorous training requirements and components such as S130, S190. When you go through the proficiency workbook, you would be evaluated by an RXB2 or RXB3 as well. And again, my name's Brian Phillip. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is there on this last slide.
Thank you so much, Brian. So I just want to emphasize, Brian's not going to come to your property and come do the burn for you. Brian is coordinating the implementation of the rule, and our agency's role is to help people get trained, and that damages feature of the prescribed burn rule or act. That's the incentive, and so we want those opportunities to get people trained before they burn, and that's really going to help fire not escape. And fire does escape. Fire's escaping kind of every week when people burn. A lot of our fires are human cost. So I think over time, this has got the potential just to be very, very positive for the state. And again, right now it's about what we can look forward to is having the opportunity to provide those training opportunities to people to get certified.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob.
Thanks, Brian. All right, so we have federally awarded grants, and I know from the we had a hand up a minute ago. Why don't we take a pause here and take the question?
Hey, Jacob, thanks. And sorry, I could reach out to Brian. I had a burning question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
With the Prescribed Burn Act, and this is something I've been trying to track for the last year or two, having heard about it. I work with, I'm a contractor for the county. I'm not an actual county employee, and some of the work that I do, and I work with a number of folks that walked away from the federal service with firing boss qualifications, various IC4, single resource boss quals. Folks that want to do contract work now, how does the Prescribed Burn Act connect contractors with doing this work versus being the actual property owner? Is this something that'll help contractors and help protect them, or is it specific to the landowner?
No, that's a great question. The way the rule reads, it says landowner or the contractor or agent. So I would believe, don't quote me on this, I'll do some further research in that, and I'll reach back out to you.
Great. No, that's great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
We had one more question from Regina Bonner asking if volunteer fire departments are required to get certified.
There's no requirement for certification. There's nothing in that, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing in that mandates that anybody get certified. It really is an incentive-based system.
Correct.
Great, and we're looking forward to more questions later, but continuing our journey across the Forestry Division, this is where this is really big. So in the past, the main federal money that came to the state that the Forestry Division was able to participate in to help get that money to hit private lands has been the non-federal lands, it's hazardous fields for non-federal land grants, and that's a grant award that actually the state administers. The deadline has just passed. It's typically April every year, and so it's going to be another year or so before people can apply again. But that's $300,000 to $400,000 per project. There's also the Wildland Urban Interface Program and the Landscape Scale Restoration Program. So Wildland Urban Interface is more focused on hazardous fuels in the WUI, and then the Landscape Scale Restoration LSR program. The purposes of that program are more broad. So the forest health treatments, again, at that landscape scale and that's a very competitive Forest Service and managed program. But the role of the Forestry Division in those programs is if somebody applies, say a city applies or a county applies, or for those programs and get awarded, the Forest Service regional office receives the money and then sends a grant to the state, to the Forestry Division, and then it's us working with that awardee to administer that grant. And so we're doing our own agreement with that the recipient of that grant, and also doing the federal reporting on the use of those federal funds. Now, so again, it's the WUI, it's the first two on this list, the WUI and the Landscape Scale Restoration Program, that are the traditional programs here. And recently, Landscape Scale Restoration has been made in the last couple of years available for NGOs to apply for those funds to the federal award process. for reasons that I don't want to get too deep into, it's really difficult for us to both comply with our state procurement codes and work with the NGOs that are awarded through those programs. And it gets to the point where no, I don't think any NGOs were ever awarded for those grants because our own procurement process forced us to make it very cumbersome on them to submit the award, even submit an application. Now that's changed. So if there's a federally managed grant award program, including all three on this list here, NGOs can apply to it as long as they're eligible according to the federal rules. And if they win, if they're awarded funds from that application, we don't have to procure you separately, meaning we just receive the grant and go into an agreement with you, done. And so the result of this is because SB 206 passed in the recent legislature, which is a narrow procurement exemption for the specific situation I'm talking about right now. And I think it's great news. It's going to result in a lot more money coming to the state because we've removed a major barrier for some very effective organizations to go out and try to get those federal awards. The last one on the list here is the Community Wildfire Defense Grants. Now, this is the new kid on the block, and I think it's very much like a WUI program, but it's got a connection to the CWPP. And I'm going to the one thing I'll say before I hand it over to Abigail to kind of describe the program a little more deeply is that the potential funds you can apply for are much greater. So the other two, WUI and LSR, you can only apply for up to $300,000. And the Community Wildfire Defense Grants, you can apply up to, I think, $10 million. And you can also apply for match waivers. So Abigail, feel free to jump on and tell people about the program.
Okay. So hi again, everyone. Abigail Plecky here. So with this new program created my job, which I'm very fortunate for. So I've been in this position for about 5 weeks. And yeah, so there's two avenues that you can go down for applying for the Community Wildfire Defense Grant. So one being the implementation or project planning. So, and yes, Jacob, exactly right. It's very exciting. Entities can go up to $10 million. And the other avenue is a CWPP update. So that's a Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And the cap on that one is actually $250,000, which is still a really nice deal for that kind of project too. So the state, so for this first cycle, there was 4 entities that have been awarded. So one being the Ford Stewards Guild. I have the opportunity to work with those guys on their implementation project in the Greater Santa Fe Fire Shed, which is very exciting. And then there's 2 projects coming out of the Cimarron Watershed Alliance in the Colfax, Taos County areas. And then we have 2 CWPP updates from Sandoval County and San Miguel County. And I think this webinar is a perfect time to get the word out. So cycle 2 is coming up. The date is not set in stone, but it will be early June and it will be open for 90 days. So I am the contact for the state. So I would really encourage to get the word out, or if anyone has more questions about it, please, I'll put my information in the chat after this intro for the Community Wildfire Defense Grant. But yeah, so what I've been spending my time, other than setting up contracts for the people who have been awarded, is really just working with people who didn't get awarded for the first cycle, how they can improve their applications for the second. And most of these improvements are just focusing on 3 key points for this application, which is your community low income? Is your community affected from severe disaster in the past, and then what's your wildfire hazard potential for your community, or how is your project going to affect communities on these 3 points. So those are the big take homes for the application. So, but nonetheless, I've started a working group, and some people on the call graciously have been attending that working group. And then the next goal of that working group is to have a workshop for interested communities, again, applications that didn't make the first cut, come together and really work on these applications, because it's a wonderful opportunity for the whole state of New Mexico to get this kind of funding. So again, I'm just going to open it up to questions. Unless I missed something major, Jacob, please chime in. And yeah, happy to help. And I'm available to make site visits. I'm a forester by trade, so I like being out in the field. So I would love to visit your community and help out any way I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Abigail. And we'll do questions here at the end. We just have a couple more slides, and then we can, I think, get to full questions. But one thing that I think so in order to do the first choice, which is implementation of a project, there's a requirement that you have to have an active, like in the last 10 years, CWPP in place.
Yeah, and I think that's why the avenue of you get either you can have an update, or if you have that update within that 10 years, you can then work on your project. So yeah, so the prerequisite is an updated CWPP.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And yeah, Abigail's been doing an amazing job, and just great to see the engagement. And again, wildland fire coordinators on the call, another good resource to tap into and to learn about, because it's and I know there are a lot of people in that poll at the beginning that are interested in both implementation and the CWPP process. So this is right now the big program that we're really focusing on, so we can, it's federal dollars again coming to the state, and I think we collected over $40 million worth of applications, not even including match, that we submitted last year in October, and then the state ended up getting $10 million across those projects you mentioned. So
yeah, I am going to say one more thing too, and I'm just this opportunity is only for 5 years. And I think that is one major thing I did miss. So the implementation projects could go 5 years, but there's only 5 cycles of this grant. So I would definitely take advantage now or within the next 4 years if you can. So.
Yeah, great. Just moving on to after fire. So this is something that's also new to us. We also had our Forest Conservation Act amended in the last legislature. We had a lot of things going on during session, and one of them was clarifying the post-fire authorities, our ability to go after a fire and do soil erosion and riparian restoration. So these are things that we've been involved with in the past, but the Forest Conservation Act amendments recently just clarified those authorities for us. We're also starting to embark on a journey with the New Mexico Reforestation Center. Right now, it's really an MOA between ourselves, Highland University, University of New Mexico, and New Mexico State University that operates the seedling facility in Mora. Now, that seedling facility does not produce enough seedlings. We have a seedling program, and it really produces around 80,000 seedlings per year. That doesn't even get us to have one seedling on per 2 acres of every. So 200,000 acres of private land burned alone in the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire. Yeah, I mean that's less than one seedling per 2 acres. If those landowners got access to those seedlings. So we want to get up to the 5 million seedlings per year. And the first phase of the New Mexico Reforestation Center was also funded. So that's site selection, architecture, site prep, and purchasing property for it. And it's going to be New Mexico State that's a fiscal agent that'll be really the operating it when it's built. But it's very exciting. We're doing seed collection activities right now. We have a seed collection coordinator or seed reforestation coordinator named Rachel Foe, who's doing an excellent job working with those universities to get seed going, and you'll be able to find out about all of this on our website. We also are involved in the recovery lines of effort. This is a kind of a new model that emerged from Hermit's Peak. They have where you have these lines of effort associated with different aspects of recovery, economic recovery, housing, water, watersheds, and so we're involved helping move those along. And one of the main programs we're involved with right now is the Emergency Forest Restoration Program, which is actually a Farm Service Agency program. And again, we're a technical assistant. So, you know, if you really break down the role of the Forestry Division, we're fire suppression. We're have some regulatory things. We're implementing laws that get passed that are related to forestry, like the Prescribed Burn Act, Forest Watershed Restoration Act. But it's also just this technical assistance thing where our role traditionally has been to be the partner for NRCS and the federal USDA agencies that provide services to landowners, because we have those 6 districts across the state with foresters located at them that can help implement those programs and get the word out about them. Now, EFRP, so far, we expect once we've completed all the landowner visits for that, and we're the technical assistant for the Farm Service Agency on that, meaning we do the planning for the burned acres for landowners. We're hoping it gets to about 40,000 acres of total restoration plans for landowners, which is about 20% of the total private land burned in that fire, which is a really good, strong number. And this is just one photo. So what burned area technical assistance looks like, where we get out with landowners and we walk their property. And the same thing happens with forest stewardship planning, right? So we're before fire and after fire. And I think it's something we want to do more of. And although the one bright side of Hermit's Peak is all this planning we're doing, we're going to be able to credit those planning acres we're doing, report that to the federal government, and then that should come back to us with a stronger allocation of stewardship funds, which will then help us fund additional landowner technical assistance in the future, in the next few years. Last slide is, so just a plug for our New Mexico Shared Stewardship Portal. Now, it's a relatively new resource, nmssp.org. You can go and request an account. It's for everybody. It's for everybody to enter their projects. What you see up here is our focal areas and our priority landscapes that are identified in our Forest Action Plan. And if you zoom in and explore it, you can see some of our active projects are starting to get added to it. So if you really want to see our work and where the landscapes we're focused on and the type of things we're doing, this is going to be the best kind of sunshine portal for the activities we have going on land, and not just for the Forestry Division, but also Forest Service projects. And I think even some SWCDs are starting to put their work up here. So we want people to start using it. And if you need support for understanding it, we've got people in resource management that can get you trained up. And with that, I think I'm going to stop sharing and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Abigail and Brian. Appreciate you all. Folks can feel free to just unmute.
Well, I'll say something. This is Gina Bonner. I really appreciate all your time here today. I just wanted to, excuse me, I'm getting over COVID. Clarify my question about the volunteer fire departments is that we have 2 volunteer fire department members that live in our subdivision, which is Taos Pines, and one of them issues burn permits on behalf of the county, and also he does pile burning. And so what I gathered from what you were saying about the individual, their contractors and or agents, that they would still be personally liable, even though they're a volunteer fire department, because they're doing the burn, they're doing the pile burning. Is that a gray area still?
So this is for private landowners. So are they conducting these pile burns throughout the municipality, town, village? I mean, those are the questions. Or is the volunteer fire department burning on private land?
It's private land within our subdivision. So I think they would just fall in the private landowner category because they're not acting in their official capacity other than to issue the burn permits.
So they would receive a burn permit, then go to the private land and conduct a pile burns, is what I'm hearing.
Right. They haven't really come to the individual landowners, but individual landowners have brought their brush piles to their property for which they burn in a burn pit.
Oh, I'm not sure that would be part of that certification process at this time, but I could definitely double check for you.
Okay, thank you.
I think one way to think about it would be that if somebody was to be harmed by an escaped fire, current state law allows them to go after double damages to whoever caused it. Now, they're free to sue either the public agencies that if they were involved with it in any way, or the landowner or whoever was doing it. And I don't. So it really allows. What it does is it lets whoever they're going to decide to sue, lets them go after double damages. Now, getting certified protects the person who's certified from being sued for double. But I think it's a more complex question about who the harmed person is going to decide to go after, and something that the prescribed burn rule doesn't really touch on.
Thank you.